So I think the war in Syria wouldn't have happened if the Iraq war wouldn't have happened. So the Iraq war was driven obviously by the neoconservative movement here in America, military-industrial complex, but a big part of that was also the Israeli lobby. Benjamin Netanyahu at the time, who had just gotten done being the Israeli prime minister, I think he was still in government, he was like the finance minister, he came and he aggressively lobbied and testified in the House and in the Senate that Saddam was developing weapons of mass destruction. So he helped launder that narrative that Saddam was developing weapons of mass destruction in conjunction with the military-industrial complex, the neoconservatives, to say that we had to go in and we had to take away the nuclear weapons. You also had others in like the think tank realm, the same thing, the media echo chamber, who was saying that Saddam was linked to Al-Qaeda and to 9/11 potentially. So they laundered those talking points as well. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu and the Likud party really wanted us to go in and take out Saddam so that they could have basically a launching pad for operations into Iraq and then also into Syria. They wanted us to do the heavy lifting so that they could eventually get their goal of taking out Assad, who was supporting Hezbollah and Hamas, and then also taking out Iran. So that's why they supported the war in Iraq. The prime minister at the time, Ariel Sharon, initially said, no, I don't support this. I want America to focus on taking out Iran first. But then eventually he got on board. So you basically had both major political parties inside of Israel pushing for the war in Iraq. The Israelis also wanted access to Iraq's oil supply so that they could get a pipeline of oil coming out of Iraq and directly into Israel, circumventing Syria, because they didn't want it to go through Syria because Assad was supporting the Iranians and supporting Hamas and Hezbollah. So once we got into Iraq and got into that quagmire, the U.S. government, screwed things up so badly that we basically handed over Iraq, as you know, to Iranian-backed Shias that were there. So by the time we were done in Iraq, Iran pretty much controlled Iraq through their proxies, helped them circumvent sanctions, made Iran even stronger. So then you had the Shia crescent. You basically had a unification of Tehran, Baghdad, and Damascus, forming that crescent, that land bridge of Iranian supplies going right into Israel's backyard. So the Israelis at the end of the Iraq war were like, no, this is not going to work at all. We have to break this up. We have to go to war in Syria. We have to take down Assad. There's some energy from the people, I think, that was somewhat organic. But then in short order, we came in and we said, we're going to work with the Israelis, but we're also going to have to work heavily with the Sunni population on the ground in Syria to create an uprising. And that's where ISIS came from. We worked directly with Al-Qaeda. Hillary Clinton's emails confirm this. The operations that we were doing to support the so-called Free Syrian Army, and there were some moderates there, but the most effective guys initially were Al-Qaeda and then eventually ISIS. Now, obviously, ISIS got out of control and they started plotting attacks in Europe. They started plotting attacks in America. They took over large swaths of Iraq. So we then had to go back and put out once again the brush fire that we had started and go after ISIS. And that's where I lost my late wife. But Israel was the driving factor in that. We took down Saddam, who was a strong man against Israel. We then had to go in and take out Assad, who was a strong man against Israel as well. And now this is the third phase. We're going now into Iran to take out that strong government for Israel.
And who did we put in charge of Syria?
We screwed the whole thing up so much
we handed it to a leader of fucking Al-Qaeda.
Yep, he was in ISIS initially. He was in Al-Qaeda initially in Iraq, fighting against us. We had him in jail, joined ISIS, broke off from ISIS, hand-selected by bin Laden's right-hand man, Ayman Zawahiri, to lead Nusra, and then they rebranded. And this is the number one way to fool Americans as a jihadist is just put on a suit and get a good PR company, and then apparently we'll just believe whatever you say.
There's videos of this guy holding people's heads that he cut off.
Yeah, he's the thug.
He's shaking
he's a brutal
President
terrorist.
Trump's hand.
Yeah, horrible advice. Yep. And so
what the fuck are we doing?
Exactly.
What are we doing? This guy's inviting a fucking terrorist into our house.
In the first Trump administration, he had Syria right. He said, we're going to go in, we're going to take out the caliphate because it poses a threat to us, and then we're going to get out. And this is why I supported President Trump, even after losing Shannon, because he was trying to get our troops out. The military was fighting him. And then when Assad fell in December, right before President Trump even took office, when Assad fell and Jelani, whatever, HTS, took over Syria, President Trump put out a truth, you can still probably pull it up, where he says, whatever happens in Syria, it's not our business. I always said it was a bad idea. I don't want to be involved in Syria. And that was actually the right approach, because it was too late for us to go back in and, fight the new government, etc. Best thing that we could have done is back off, let the Turks, let the Israelis, let our regional partners kind of take lead there. But instead, we went all in with the Shara government. We embraced them, and now we're pretending they're part of like the de-ISIS coalition, and it's an entire mess. Like, look, the Middle East basically, and President Trump used to understand this, the Middle East is a place where you can just get involved in these never-ending quagmires, and you start one fire to put out another, and you never fully extricate yourself. And at the end of the equation, there's never a clear benefit for the American people. And that's gotten us to this state that we're in right now, and we have to stop that.